It's important to decarbonize the aviation sector because it's a large contributor towards emissions within the transportation sector. Other parts are bigger, like autos, but in these sectors you also have a much clearer path of decarbonisation and a much quicker path to decarbonize, whereas aviation is a pretty big contributor. During COVID, because of what happened to the aviation sector, maybe you might have expected governments to take a step back, given the impact it had on airlines and aerospace companies. But in fact, we've seen more tangible regulation being introduced during COVID. So, for example, the EU Fit for 55 package. But at the same time, I would say the regulatory scrutiny is a lot less than other sectors because it's very hard. There's just no alternative substitutes. Before the end of the decade, technology-wise, there's not much that could be developed and be introduced because it usually takes billions of dollars and maybe 10 years to develop and get certified a new model. And this is using technology that we know. But you have things like sustainable aviation fuels, which a lot of also oil and gas companies are now switching capacity to create more of these. But the difficulty is that the supply is still not enough, and they cost 3 to 4 times the price of normal kerosene. So which is why you need governments to step in, and they will need to create incentives for airlines to purchase this fuel, and that can be in the form of subsidies or taxation. Historically, the vast majority of carbon emission savings from new aircraft models have come from the engines, and you can also build lighter planes using different materials. So the engine OEMs will play a big role. If in the short term, the quickest way to decarbonize is by fleet renewal, then there's no particular winners or losers because it's business as usual. Because these companies are already incentivized to make planes more fuel efficient. But longer term, so you have the things like hydrogen electrification are being considered, which could be really interesting. These, would probably enter into service at earliest by 2035. And even then, it would be the question, these technologies are so nascent that it would be the question if, when they enter into service, could they do, what sort of routes would they be capable of flying? Because 80% of emissions are made on routes above 1,000 kilometers. So if, for example, you develop an electric plane, but battery technology is not there yet to be able to fly for 6 hours, then you're not targeting the part of the market that emits the most carbon. And the same for hydrogen, because hydrogen, to get the same sort of energy as you get from traditional jet fuel, you need 3 times the volume, simplistically. And so you'd have to essentially completely redesign planes, because currently fuel is stored in the wings predominantly. And if you need 3 times the volume, you have to rethink sort of where you put fuel in aircraft.